So it's 14 degrees outside. Just turned on the car. Thought it would be nice to warm up. And I turned on my little light here and just realized I got frost on the inside of my car. That's a new one. I haven't really been car camping when it's this cold. Hey guys, so as some of you may know, I've been in Ouray, Colorado, ice climbing for the past week now, and I've been sleeping in my car mostly, but luckily I had some friends here that invited me into their hotel room. There's where I've been sleeping, and so I have a nice warm spot for the past couple of nights. But I wanted to make a video about the usual stuff that I carry in my pack for ice climbing. And so this is my setup pretty much. I've been using a 30-liter pack, and I stick my ice tools and crampons on the outside, and then everything else is shoved on the inside. So I just wanted to make a video on what I usually take for a normal day of ice climbing. And in addition to the pack right here, I also have the ropes, which we stuck up here because they're drying. This is my rope that I've been using. It's a 60-meter Sterling Nano 9. I've had this rope for a couple years now, actually. It's still in such great shape. You can see Nano 9. It's called the Nano 9 because it's 9 millimeters. For ice climbing, it's nice to have thinner ropes, as well as ones with dry treatment, which this Sterling rope is still pretty good at keeping the water out, even after how old it is. So that's a really great rope for ice climbing. Highly recommend it. Also, I'm not going to talk about the clothes I usually wear on my body because I already have a whole video about that. But I will say that lately I've been using my G2SMs, the double boots that La Sportiva came out with. And I'll have a full review on these soon, but they climb ice really great and keep my toes really warm. I have been using G5s for the past couple days too, and I just switched to these for the past 2 days, and really liking them, so just throwing that one out there as part of my technical equipment. So on my backpack, I've been using my BD Cobras, very high quality tools, the carbon fiber ones. They do a really good job swinging, and yeah, I like them a lot. Right here, the crampons I've been using are, I think these are called the Stinger crampons, or the mono points. I haven't used mono points in a while. They're really great for dry tooling and any mixed stuff. On ice, it took me just a little bit to get used to them, but now I'm pretty comfortable with them again. I think in the future I kind of almost prefer the dual points, but I don't have any dual point crampons that are this style that are made more for ice climbing. I have a lot of dual points that are more for snow climbing, but I wanted this really sharp point, for ice climbing. Either way, the mono points have been working great for me, and these are really great crampons. Also, another thing that I may carry on the outside of my pack or inside is my helmet with my sticker that's slowly peeling off. Just any helmet, as long as it's climbing, will do. And I like this one because it is a bit wider, so I can fit a bunch of layers underneath this helmet. So it's the same one that I use for mountaineering and ice climbing. Alright, so I'll also carry a puffy. I always have this in my pack. This is nice because it has a waterproof membrane on the outside and keeps you warm on the inside. I actually haven't been using this too much lately. And then I'll always carry at least 3 pairs of gloves. Usually I'm wearing a pair, but I'll have about 2 pairs of medium weight gloves that I switch between while I climb. I'll also have a thicker pair of gloves for belaying and when my hands get cold. So I'll usually carry about 3 pairs of gloves. Lately I haven't been carrying a really thin pair of gloves for harder pitches. So I've just been doing everything in my more medium weight style gloves. These ones are actually kind of a bit smaller than medium weight, so they're kind of like the hard climbing glove, but they still have insulation on the inside. They're actually really nice. Alright, so for my harness setup, I've been using my Technician harness. Really great ice climbing harness. And I have 2 ice screw clippers on it. This harness specifically can actually take 4. You see the ones in the front and then the 2 in between the gear loops. I've only been rolling with 2 lately, because I don't think I've had enough screws to really fill up 4. It would help with organization, but I kind of feel like 2 is all I need right now. And maybe as I do more multi-pitches coming up, I'll add in 2 more, but so far 2 have been working out for me. I also have this Rapide, which I just picked up. This is made by Petzl. It's an actual, it's actually rated for climbing use. You can see 25 kilonewtons right there. You want to make sure it's rated for climbing. You don't just go to Home Depot and buy these things. But that's just for bailing off if I need to on a V-thread or whatever. So that's just on my harness that it'll probably stay on there forever. Okay, for the stuff that actually goes on the harness, just like in rock climbing, I'm going to have a different setup for multi-pitch ice climbing versus single pitch. Lately, when I have no one to climb with, I've been going into the park and rope soloing. And so I have set up for that. I just bought a second micro traction, so that way I can rope solo the actual recommended way, which I'll have a video on that coming out soon. And then that's on, each micro traction has its own locker. When I rope solo with 2 micro tractions, I do use a locking quick draw, which comes in handy to have a separation between the 2 devices. I just have a bunch of lockers. Right here, this is 5 free locking carabiners. Because the way how I build my anchors for rope soloing and Ure, I just use generally 2 lockers on the bolts if they give you bolts, and then I'll have 2 lockers for my master point, and so then, yeah, you just need a fair amount of more lockers. And if I go multi-pitch ice climbing, then I will just take 5 of these blue pair lockers with me. I have an ATC because that's just such a useful tool. I use my gree for, again, rope soloing. After I build my anchor, I rappel down to the base of the climb with this thing and then switch to my micro tractions. And so that's kind of like the setup I use for rope soloing. I don't really use like standard anchors too much to build my rope solo anchors because I just use my one end of my climbing rope to build the anchor, and then I use that to climb up, which if you guys are interested in how I do that, you can I can make another video on that if you ask. So if I'm going on a multi-pitch route, I'll always have my cord with me. If anything, that could be rescue material, or I could just cut it up and leave it on a climb for a V-thread. Double length sling for rappel tether. I have 1 quad here. I may bring up a second quad depending on what the rest of the group has, but generally the people I'm climbing with have their own anchors with them, so I'll just bring up 1 quad with me. And then the classic sort of rescue or utilitarian kit that every ice climber has. TID block, which I might leave behind if I choose to bring up a micro traction with me on a multi-pitch, which could, I'd probably rather bring this because it has a bit more uses than this guy. But also I have a little knife, again for cutting cord mainly, hollow block for rappelling, and then a V-thread tool. This is the J snare. Everyone loves it because it doesn't have a little hook that digs into the sheath of your rope. This thing just sort of loops around it, which is really nice V-thread tool. And I have that all on this big carabiner, which I kind of wouldn't mind leaving behind if I have to. And then I probably have any of these could be a bail beaner if I'm really in a tight spot. But generally that's the stuff that's on my harness as my climbing tool kit. And then I'll just add in whatever bits of rack I need for the actual climb. Alright, so the final bits of gear I will carry with me are the rack, which is completely dependent on the climb. These aren't my ice screws, these are my friend's ice screws. All of mine are out in my car and I don't want to get them, so this is just sort of symbolic. These are my quick draws. I just have 10 right here. I have 8 sport draws and then 2 alpines. You can see the other ones right there. Pretty much the gear that you take is going to be completely dependent on the climb, but generally you'll have, you know, about 12 ice screws, 1 or 2 of the longer ones, 21s for building V-threads, and then depending on the climb you may want a smaller 10 centimeter for whatever you're doing, but the majority of the gear you have are going to be 13 and 16 centimeter screws, and so that's why, I mean, we just sort of threw all the screws in here so there's no rhyme or reason to them, but generally if you're taking about 12 screws and that's 2 21s, maybe let's say about 1 stubby, and so then you'll have about 5 13s and then 4 16s in there. And then again, depending on how long the pitches are or how thin the climb is, you'll mix and match your screws just like you would any other gear for any climb. And then generally with quick draws, you want to bring at least one quick draw for every ice screw. But if you're like me and you incorporate quick draws into your anchors a lot, then you want to bring one or two extra. And then usually the balance is you can afford to have more sport draws because ice has less friction than rock. But on longer multi-pitch climbs, you're going to want a number of alpine draws. So if you're going to bring 12 quick draws, then somewhere about 6 sport, 6 alpine aren't bad to have. And then you can even sort of branch into the 8 sport, 4 alpine depending on the climb. If it's a very straightforward climb, you can use more sport draws than alpine draws. And if it's a more wandery, mixed sort of route, then you're going to want more alpine than sport. So that's your preference and your experience level. But that's everything that I'll have in my pack for ice climbing. It's actually kind of not that much. It's about the same as any sort of single pitch cragging that you would do. So it's all just about your comfort, your experience level, and then what objective you're going for. A lot of times people will elect to take 2 ropes instead of just the one, and so it can either be like 2 half ropes or 2 twin ropes. Well, not generally 2 twin ropes, but 2 half ropes, or sometimes 2 single ropes. Ropes like that, Sterling Nano 9, and that's a Mammut, something else, like an 8-1, I think. And so, I don't think that's an 8-1, more like an 8-7 or something. So both of those are single rated ropes, but they're also twin and half rated. And so ice climbing, it's really nice to use 2 ropes that are small single rated ropes that'll help with your climbing and with protecting the climb. So that's all just stuff that's more experience. For climbing in the park, a lot of times you only need a single rated 160 meter rope, and then that'll get you up many of the climbs. But I hope this helps you guys with sort of deciding what to bring out for your own climb. And then if you have any other pieces of gear you like to bring out ice climbing, then please leave a comment for it. I'd like to hear about it.